So does the 5090 make sense? The 5090 was actually, lesser in terms of specs. So there's another problem. Hello everyone, welcome back to PC Species. Today we are reviewing the RTX 5090. Now if you can see the card, you connect me with your dealer. If you cannot, I'll connect you with mine. So this is more like a review of reviews. I've done my fair share of research on the card about its performance and all of that. So we are going to be discussing that today, and then some rants and some philosophy about whether you should buy the 5090 or not. So let us get right to it. We'll start with the design. So I'll show you the specifications first. You can pause the screen here, take a look, and then refresh yourself on what the specifications are, and then we can move on. So the changes this time are the process remains the same, TSMC 4 nanometer, but the die size is bigger this time, and hence the massive core count compared to the 4090. All right. So we are on PCI 5.0 this time, and with the memory moving up from GDDR6X to GDDR7, and from 24 gigs we go to 32 gigs. The highlight this time around with the Founders Edition card is the cooler. It is just a 2-slot card, and yet it performs very well. So that is because of the new 3D vapor chamber and the PCB being in between. Another good change with the 5090 and hopefully the RTX 5000 generation is the change in the power connector. So they have designed it so that the cable plugs in better than before. So the chances of a loose connection and then the cables burning up, those are going to be mitigated. So that is with the new power connector. Again, another new thing is that with the Founders Edition card, the PCB sits in between. So the PCIe connector and the display ports and all of those, your display out connectors, they're on separate PCBs connected via ribbon cables. So this is about the design. Now let us talk about the thermals. So from what I've heard and what I've seen, the Founders Edition card performs really well in terms of thermals, and that also shows in the frequency. Now NVIDIA claims 2.01 gigahertz for the base clock and 2.41 for the boost clock, but it regularly goes over 2.6 or 2600 megahertz during gaming. That is what I've seen. So that seems quite all right. And again, that is a testament to the good thermal management of the Founders Edition card. The power draw is a bit of a concern. So 575 watt is what NVIDIA claims, but usually it goes over that under peak loads. But even for gaming, it is around 500 to 530 watts. So you are going to need a decent enough power supply in order to, extract the most out of it. Now, NVIDIA recommends 1000 watts. I'd say go for at least 1200 because a lot of the power draw is also going to depend on the processor that you use. Most of the testing that is done online has been done using a 9800X3D, which is not a very power hungry processor. But if you get something beefier like the 7950X or the 9950X or the Core Ultras are actually more efficient. If you go with a 4900K or something, you're going to need a lot of power. So I'd say at least go for 1200 watts. Now let us talk about the performance. Now I am only going to talk about the performance of the 5090 relative to the 4090 because that is the most relevant card that we have. 3090 Ti is a little too old and too slow compared to the 5090, and there's no competition from AMD in this space yet, and there probably won't be according to what they have said. So in 4K rasterization, now this is an average of a lot of games and the data I've accumulated from a lot of sources. So you can expect the 5090 to be around 30 to 35% faster than the 4090 in 4K rasterization. This is without ray tracing. Now this also changes from game to game, which is obviously there. So you get around 20% in some games, 25 in some, 40 in some, 45 in some, 35 in some. So you can expect on an average 30 to 35% improvements in different video games compared to the 4090. All right, so we are going to talk about the 4K ray tracing results. So 5090 is on average around 30% faster than the 4090. And again, this varies from game to game. Another peculiar thing that I noticed was that on 1440p and 1080p, the scaling isn't there. So the lead the 5090 has over the 4090 drops on 1440p and even more so on 1080p. In fact, in some cases, the 4090 was faster than the 5090 on 1080p. Now, to some extent, this could be processor bottlenecking, but I don't think that is happening because the 9800 X3D is really fast. But it could be because of the overhead issues. Since the core count this time, the CUDA core count this time is so massive, maybe there are some problems with the proper utilization at lower resolutions. All right. So this is all I have to say in terms of the performance and everything else. And again, this data I have sourced from various channels and various articles online. So this is it. Now, the crux or the point of this video is a sort of a ranty discussion about the 5090. So does the 5090 make sense? Over a 4090, it does not, because the price goes up from around $1,500 or $1,600 to $2,000, and comparing that in the Indian currency, so 1,58,000 for the 4090, the current price of the reference card, and 2,14,000 for the 5090. So that's already a massive increase. And then when you think about the price of the partner cards for the 4090, that regularly goes over 2 lakhs. So 5090 partner cards, I think they'll easily retail over 2.5 lakhs and even 3 lakhs. So with that sort of a jump in price, and if you already own a 4090, I do not think it makes sense to upgrade to a 5090, because the performance gains are there. It's not a bad card, but then again, it does not justify a change or that kind of an expense. All right. So there's another problem. NVIDIA is heavily marketing DLSS 4. Now DLSS 4 and the accompanying technology will trickle down to the other RTX cards as well, 40 series, 30 series, and so on. The only feature that remains exclusive to the 5000 series, or the 5090 in this case, is the multi-frame gen. And again, there are a lot of caveats to that as well, and we'll discuss that in a separate video. In all likelihood, that video will follow this one, so we'll do a detailed discussion on that. Now, another reason why I think the 5090 is not the card to go for, or you should not spend the money on it, because as we discussed in the previous video, on during CES, the card that was shown on the big screen, and then the specifications of that card, the full die, the RTX Blackwell die, compared to the 5090, the 5090 was actually lesser in terms of specs. So I think there may be a 5090 Ti or a Blackwell Titan on the horizon. Now imagine you spend $2,000 or nearly 2 lakh rupees on the 5090, if you can snag a Founders Edition, that is. And then after a while, there's another card, and that makes sure that your 5090 is not the flagship anymore. Obviously, the 5090 Ti or Titan Blackwell, if there is going to be one, is going to be even pricier. So it sort of moves the baseline around $2,000 for the flagship, and then charging more. Now, another reason for not getting the 5090 is that this is not really a generational change. So the process remains the same, the die is bigger. Yes, there's PCI 5.0 and the memory from GDDR6 to GDDR7. That has improved, but the process has not. And that is why NVIDIA is heavily relying on AI in order to, portray to the customers the kind of jump that you can expect. But in terms of raw performance, the 5090 doesn't do a lot. Now, another thing that I think, now again, this is simply my personal opinion, that the 90 series of cards, they should not be GeForce cards, because GeForce means gaming cards. To me, the 4080 Super, the 5080, 3080, 3080 Super, these are the gaming cards. The 90 ones, the 90 series cards, they simply do not justify, the expenditure for simply gaming. Now, if you're someone who uses your GPU for more than video games, let's say you do 3D modeling or AI language model training or whatever, then it will make sense that, you're working, you're using it for work, and then it is an additional benefit that you can game on it as well, which you do not get with the Quattro cards, which are simply geared towards work. So the 90 series cards to me have always been sort of a hybrid between the Quattros and the GeForce cards. So again, this is just something that I thought of, and I thought I'd share it with you. Another problem that I see with RTX 5000 is that, a lot of people are claiming that raw compute is not going to be enough anymore. So the AI generated frames, or AI rendering, or AI based rendering, whatever you want to call it, is the way forward. In that way forward, the RTX 5000 is the first generation of cards. The problem with that is that there are always some issues. Now the technology is going to develop, but with the very first generation of something new, there are always some problems, and that sort of makes the buyers of RTX 5000 series beta testers, and customers should not do that. Now, what else can we talk about? Again, the DLSS 4 and multi-frame gen, we'll talk about it in another video. And there's also the discussion of, mid-range cards. But now AMD is not competing in the high-end space anymore. They have no competition with the 5090 or the 5080. They are going to start to put their cards out in competition of the 5070 Ti and the 5070, and then lower down the stack. So the question is, should you buy the RTX 5090? Okay, so in an Indian context, let's say usually we have budgets of around 1 lakh or maybe 1.25 lakhs. And in most of the cases, it is lower than that. But let's say that you have a budget of 1 lakh. And then there's a GPU, just the GPU that is retailing for over 2 lakhs for the Founders Edition card that you may or may not find, and may even have to spend 2.5 lakhs to 3 lakhs on just the GPU alone. So for a gaming build, the 5090 does not make sense to me. If you have a 4090, upgrading to a 5090 does not make a sense to me. Now, if you have a 3090 or 3090 Ti, now you're a power user. You use your PC for gaming, but more than that, you also use it for work. Again, like I said, 3D modeling and whatever. Then in that case, over the 3090 or 3090 Ti, the 5090 is offering a lot. So you can go for the 5090 if you do that. But just for gaming, the RTX 5090 does not make sense to me. These were just my 2 cents on it. Again, I had to do a lot of research to figure out how much the 5090 is faster than the 4090, and then based on that, just put forth my opinion on whether you should get the 5090 or not. Again, we'll do the same things with the 5080 and everything, so stick around. Also, I'd like to implore you to subscribe the channel, like the videos, tell us in comments what you think about the card, think about the performance, and whatever else you want to tell us. Show us some love in the comments, like the video, subscribe, share, so that we grow as a channel, so that we can get the cards ourselves and not do these phantom reviews like I just did. So please do that and stick around to the channel for more content. Again, the next video might be DLSS 4 and multi-frame gen discussion, so we'll see you in that one.